Welcome to MAC Bleu, the cutting-edge podcast for the nation's builders, merging the realms of construction with exciting advancements in technology. Join us on a thrilling journey where we delve into the dynamic world of blockchain, AI, the Metaverse, virtual and augmented reality, and their transformative impact on the industry. Our engaging discussions span a wide spectrum, covering not only construction, economic development, supply chain, and market segments, but also exploring the vibrant tapestry of diversity within the construction landscape. We shed light on the intersection of local politics and its profound influence on the construction sector, while championing the remarkable contributions of women and minorities in construction. For all things MAC Bleu, head to www.macandblue.com, and don't forget to subscribe on YouTube. I'm your host, JJ Levinsky. Now let's get into it. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of MAC Bleu. I'm your host, JJ Levinsky, president and co-founder of Blue Wave. I am lucky enough to have Christina Spicer on. She's the co-CEO of the Girl Scouts-Arizona Cactus-Pine Council. That is a mouthful. Basically, she's just the head de la jefa, if I got my Spanish right, of the Girl Scouts here in Arizona. So, full disclosure, we were joking before we got on the air. Christina and I met at a Vistage event a couple of years ago because we were both in Vistage at the time, and then forget 6 degrees of separation. It's like one tenth of a degree of separation on everyone that we know. Yeah. And I was joking with you before we got in. It's like, oh, yeah, we see the world, where the circles where you run in and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, it's great to finally have you on because I know we've had I've had a lot of people and associates and friends of yours going, get Christina on.
That's really kind. Very kind.
And you know what MAC Bleu is about. We're about just paying it forward here in not only the local economy, but regionally. Hopefully we hit a national audience too. So just welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is a true honor. I've been looking forward to this. So thank you.
Well, Christina, everyone always liked, you know how this rolls. We got to take the first 10 or so minutes. Everyone wants to just know about you as the human being. Like, are you from here? Are you one of the 22%ers that's a native?
So I claim that I'm a native. So I was actually born in California. And then my mom and I moved out here when I was in 4th grade. Oh. So
You're still a native.
I count. I claim that. I feel like if you know what explodes in your car after it hits like 110 degrees, you are officially a native. And so we moved out to Mesa, and I grew up in Mesa, went to Red Mountain High School, and then went to Arizona State University.
You must have been one of the first.
Yes. So we were, I think, my graduating class may have been the 10-year anniversary.
Okay, so we were a little younger.
And it was huge. It was a huge high school. So I think our graduating class had like 900 people in it. It was massive.
That's where my sucker, I still have one in high school, and we live up there. So.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
And that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, so I always joke around about anybody who's ever gone to Red Mountain, those really weird steps that exist there. And I'm like, you only know about Red Mountain because of the steps. So, weird steps going up and down.
That's too funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, but, I guess I got it wrong because we have a neighbor, and that's right, she was the first class that ever started because everyone went. Did everyone go to Mountain View before?
No.
And then when Red Mountain got built, yeah.
Yep, so it was Mountain View, and then when Skyline the year...
Yeah, over A.J. Moore.
Yep.
So, I know it's Mesa, everyone considers Space.
Yes, it's totally the A.J. border over there. So I had a group of friends, so my senior year was the first year that they officially opened. So I had a bunch of friends that went to Skyline, and so, yeah. So I was the first person in my family to go to college, so I went to ASU. First time I ever set foot on campus was actually move-in day, and I remember everybody had their parents with them. I was like, should I have brought my mom? Like, this is a bring your parent to school day. Like, what is happening here? So I'm a hardcore Sun Devil, and so grew up here. This is home for me.
So talk a little bit, not that I put a lot of credential on the degrees and all that kind of stuff, but it seems like if I've done a little bit of research on you, while you're at ASU, kind of found your calling, right? And so explain to the audience a little bit about what you got degrees in and kind of how that fostered who you are today.
Yeah. So in high school, I did a lot of public speaking, doing presentations about eating disorders and self-esteem. And so that was kind of my on-ramp into really enjoying just talking, communicating with people. So when I found out you could get a degree in talking, I was like, great, sign me up. Where do you find that? Where is that located? And so I got to get paid. You get paid. You get paid to talk to people. I'm in. So so I was meeting with a counselor, and she shared with me that you can get a degree in communication.
Okay.
Not communications, because that's journalism. And I always joke around because at ASU back in the day, communications, the Walter Cronkite School was on the bottom 2 floors, and then the communication degrees were on the top 2 floors. And you could always tell who was who because the communications with the S, we were dressed up with heels, looking fly. They were amazing looking. And then the rest of us were in our Ugg boots and like rolled out of bed. And we're like, oh no S here. We're just here to learn about how to communicate with one another. So I got my undergraduate degree in communication, loved that. And right after that, started working for a small nonprofit organization, teaching people how to share stories of recovery. And it was
impactful, I can imagine.
It was incredible. I mean, you would sit across the table from someone and say, tell me the worst thing you've ever done in your life, and we're going to figure out how to package that and then offer it as a gift of learning for other people. And so it was an incredible gift. I worked for notMYkid for almost 5 years.
What was that again?
notMYkid.
notMYkid. Is that still in existence?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Stephen W. Moak started it. And
what's the ethos behind that?
So they had a son who had a drug addiction, and in that time frame, their belief system was notMYkid. Like, he's a star student, he's a star athlete.
The denial.
Like notMYkid. And then when they realized they really had a lot of challenges in realizing that there were other families who were experiencing a similar thing. They were going through this feeling of notMYkid. And so they started a parent education program and a youth education program. And so the youth education program was called Clear Choices. And Clear Choices essentially took people who had had different stories of recovery and went to different schools and programs and shared their stories and really talked about the choices and consequences. And then also used that for parents, because sometimes parents need to hear it from the people who've experienced it to really maybe see things that they hadn't seen before. So it was incredible. It was an awesome job out of college. I loved it, gave a lot of my time and heart to that. And then from there went, and I went my HID in graduate school and got my master's degree in nonprofit management and leadership. And that was an awesome.
But did you do that because of this experience?
I did.
Or, I mean, not entirely, but I'm sure it had a big influence.
Yes, because so there I was, 25 years old and totally burnt out and trying to figure out, like, there's got to be a better way. It was like a quarter life crisis of, not everybody should be this burnt out. Like, you should be able to follow your heart and your passion and your dreams and not fully burn out and lose yourself in that. And I also think that I was really wrapped up in my title, right? So I felt like, when you give so much of yourself and your title is so important, and ego is all wrapped up into that too, probably, that then you get to a place where you have to really figure out when hard things personally happen to you, your job is never going to hug you back, right? And titles come and go. So if you don't know who you are and your identity is wrapped up in your title and your identity is wrapped up in your job, then things get really hard and difficult. And so when I quit notMYkid, I literally went seeking to try to figure out how do I sustain my passion. And so I sat for like 2 months. I was like, I'm just going to sit and try to figure out, what am I going to do with my life? I know my calling, I know my purpose, but how do you sustain that without burning out?
Can I rock the boat a little bit?
Always.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when I find someone that is wired like you, where you have this drive to help people, this advocacy, usually there's something that happened as a child to her. Can you share? Or are you willing to share?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
So
we call them traumas. They're not always traumas like what people think are traumas, right? Yeah. You know this because you're educated in it, but a lot of people, they don't understand. They're on that same river as notMYkid parents, called denial, right?
Yeah,
so
absolutely. And no, I mean, and I think that they turn into developing grit and developing who you are as a human being. So I was raised, so my parents actually divorced when I was in 4th grade, and it was just me and my mom growing up.
And you have any brothers or sisters?
No.
Okay.
So it was just 2 of us, and my grandma also lived with us on and off. And, I think that there was, my mom worked a full-time job. She also struggled with mental illness, and so there was a lot of
Did you know that?
I think so. I think it wasn't later on in life that I really started to understand that not every parent was like mine.
Yeah.
And so you don't really know that. It's like similar to you don't know that you don't have money until somebody says you don't have money, right? So really growing up growing up with my mom, and really she and I were partners, not necessarily mother-daughter. And so there was a lot of things that happened in my childhood that I think I didn't necessarily feel like I had control over. And so when I was in 7th grade, I was diagnosed with an eating disorder, and I was hospitalized twice with that. And I think during that time, at such a young age, you learn really quickly about, there are healthy ways of coping with things and then not healthy way of coping with things. And there were things that were just out of my control. And if that's the one thing you think that you can control, that's what you lean towards, right? And so as I started to really work through where all that was coming from, challenges with my family, understanding things that weren't necessarily my fault, but just were circumstances that were part of my childhood. I then realized that I had a story to tell. And so in 8th grade...
So that's where you found your voice.
Yeah. Because in 8th grade, we were sitting in a PE class, and the PE teacher was like, we're going to do a day on eating disorders. And of course, everybody looked at me like, oh, yeah. And so, and that people had known that I had been in and out of the hospital with it. And so they basically everyone kind of stared at me. And that day I was really worried about going to PE. And we watched a video on how to properly shop for food. And I was like, that is nothing like what I've been through over this past summer. So I raised my hand and I asked my teacher, I said, I'll tell you what happened. I'll tell you what it was like to be in the hospital. I'll tell you about how I got there. I'll tell you about the things that I learned. And it was...
There comes a time when dreams become a reality, when you see your vision materialize into a true work of art. And the only way to get there is to choose a general contractor who shares that same vision and knows how to bring it to life. At Blue Wave, we aren't so big that we've forgotten where we've come from, and we aren't so small that we can't care for your projects regardless of their size. When your vision deserves safety, perfection, timeliness, and expertise in order to become a reality, trust Blue Wave to get it done right the first time.
was wild because from a faith perspective, I mean, what came out of my mouth that day when I was in 8th grade was actually the journey and what I ended up sharing that story all the way until I was about 27 years old. Traveled all over Arizona to the majority of junior highs and high school in Arizona, sharing this personal story of recovery, which truly got me my first job out of college. And then realizing that there were a lot of other people that, especially when it came for me personally, it helped me stay accountable. Because
that's very important.
Right? Because you can't stand up in front of a group of people, especially young people, and say, I'm healthy, these are the good choices that I'm making, this is the path that I'm on, and not be well. And I mean, it was an incredible ability to turn pain into a gift for myself in my own journey.
Let me interrupt you for a minute.
Yeah.
Because I would think a lot of people are listening going, whether it was them, whether they have kids now, just putting themselves back to where you were between 7th and 8th grade. Was it that teacher? Was it that one event that allowed you to find your voice? What was it? What was that one feeling you can go back to that allowed you to find your voice?
That's such a good question. Honestly, if I put myself back into that moment of sitting in the gym, was looking at my peers who I knew were in that same struggle personally, right? and realize
This wasn't maybe they didn't have an eating disorder, but there was something else.
yeah, right. And that like regardless, addiction is addiction, struggles are struggles, stories are stories,
Yeah.
trauma is trauma. And so I think that really what inspired me was looking around and being like, I had something to say, and she gave me the platform. And what a gift thinking now as an adult. I mean, I think about the risk as a grown person. If an eighth grader said to me, hey, I have a story to tell, I would be like, I'm going to need to vet this. I'm going to need to get permission slips. All the things. But she just opened the floor.
Yeah.
And what an incredible gift and a pretty incredible reminder as an adult that sometimes what you do is just to clear the path and let the young people speak. And I do think it's a lot of what I get to do today in my job and what I've done throughout the majority of my career. And so, yes, I think that PE teacher probably had a huge example just because she stepped out of the way.
Yeah. Well, Stu, I know we kind of tangent, but that's how we roll here.
Right. No.
My ADD kicks in all the time, so don't worry about it.
Mine too, so this will be fine.
No, and I don't want to get back to the formal train but let's just keep going off on tangents. So, okay, we got through the notMYkid.
Yeah.
Going back to grad school. Okay, let's stay in grad school for a minute.
Yeah.
What did you find in grad school?
So I went through a really terrible breakup. It was a terrible breakup. So I went truly to hide and to figure out who I was as a person, and also how to sustain.
Because you wasn't it 20s?
Mm-hmm. So I was 25, and I think at that point it was really this turning point of saying, I know that this is what I'm designed to do. So now how do I? There's got to be a book, right? And other people who have come before. Somebody's got to have the answer. And what I found was incredible individuals who were very much like me, who had decided to have their careers be in the nonprofit sector. And I think before it really became a degree and really looking at this as a profession from the beginning, a lot of executives in the nonprofit sector had come from the business world. So they had run really successful businesses and then decided, I want to do good in the world, and I think I'll go run a nonprofit. And which is awesome. And I think that some of us want to start out that way, right? We want to start out by holding a double bottom line, meaning
good point.
Profit as well as, real impact in our community and being responsible for both. And I think it takes training and great mentorship and great support and really awesome people around you to help guide you through that process of that career choice.
I love that saying that you just did, because I've heard it before, but I haven't heard it recently, the double bottom line.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how can you do good and do good, right?
Yes, absolutely, because it is a business. I mean, and I think that that's the big argument in the nonprofit sector is like, is it a business or is it not? Absolutely, it's a business.
Now the tangent. So now that I want you to blend both then and now.
Yeah.
Knowing what you know about nonprofits.
Yeah.
Give me your 5-minute elevator speech on breaking down the stereotypes of nonprofits that everyone thinks of.
Yeah.
Because you've seen it all, though.
Right. I mean, I don't know if I've seen it all, but
a lot of it. Yeah.
I think there's this misunderstanding. I mean, so there's a Robert Putnam wrote a book called Uncharitable, and I think everybody should read it. And Uncharitable was essentially this conversation of, if you have a really big issue, you're not going to expect people from the goodwill of their heart to just go solve that because it should be solved, right? So if you have an issue such as poverty, people who are experiencing being unsheltered, if crisis around domestic violence, these are really huge social issues that our community is facing. And so the expectation that people don't get paid and that shouldn't be well run and held to a particular standard is kind of crazy. these are really big, important issues to be talking about. And so we want to make sure that we put people in those positions that are going to be able to hold to that ethical standard, that are going to steward community resources really well. I think nonprofits are held to a different standard because this is money that the community is investing, and you are ensuring that you are going to be a good steward of those resources to make good in the world, to do good in the world.
Yeah.
And so I think that's, again, goes back to that double bottom line that absolutely you're responsible for running a really savvy, smart business. And you also have to show the results of that. And so I think this misconception that people shouldn't get paid, I think is really unfortunate because we want to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to put their best foot forward. It's similar to educators, right? Like we can have that conversation about education, around nonprofit management. So I think that's probably the biggest misconception, but I would say uncharitable is a great place to start for everyone around some of the myth busting.
I'm going to be on my Audible list by tonight. It's really great. Okay, but I got to come back now. JJ off on his tangents. Okay, so grad school.
Yeah.
Talk to me about, so you apparently got through the breakup.
Yes, got through that.
Drugs and alcohol. No, I'm just I had to try to throw a funny in there just to lighten the mood. So you get out of grad school, then what?
So I started working for Teach for America, and I was on our fund development team, and it was...
Oh, they're national.
They are national. So the interesting part was, so at notMYkid, I ran program, right? And I always joked around that the fund development people were...
The fund development people.
They were the fund development people, right? They were kind of like the dark side of the nonprofit sector. I'm like, all they do is, go to breakfast and go to lunch and wear high heels. And so, then going over and starting and working inside of the fundraising side of things, I was like, wow, I'm kind of coming to the dark side of the nonprofit sector. And it was awesome. I really loved the ability to have...
Was you traveling all over the country at that time, or just
all local?
It was local.
So it was the Phoenix region, and the thing that was really exciting was to take the experience of program and understanding how critical it was to really understand the mission of the organization, and then being able to figure out how do you authentically and genuinely tell those stories, and that a great fundraiser is all about being able to share that story. Especially within our education system. And it was a huge learning for me, too, growing up in the state of Arizona and not realizing that some of the difference of what I experienced as an education and achievement gap in my own education, and in some ways even the opportunity gap that is discussed and talked about. And so I worked for Teach for America for 6 years, ran their fund development team. It was incredible. Got to meet some awesome people in Arizona. Learned a lot. I kind of joke around to kind of break you down and build you back up. And I always joked that I would end my career at Girl Scouts, because Girl Scouts, I think, is the mothership of all great things to empower girls and women. And I had my daughter, and she was a year old. And of course, now I know all things about girls. And so I called at the time the CEO of Girl Scouts-Arizona Cactus-Pine Council and was like, I'd love to have lunch. Let's talk. I was looking for a board seat.
Oh.
And literally 2-3 weeks later, I was sitting over in our fund development team working over at Girl Scouts. So it happened really fast.
So that really did happen fast. I'm curious, go back to not that I want to go back, but in that Teach for America, during that 6 years, do you feel you had a strong mentorship there? Were there some individuals that influenced you during that time?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, it was filled with incredible mentors.
The platform schedule? Yeah.
I mean, and just to be able to be exposed to the business side, truly, the business side of the nonprofit sector, where it was a national organization. So going from a local nonprofit to something that was a national nonprofit, seeing the difference between the two was huge.
Can you speak to that for the audience?
Oh, yeah.
Someone that knows nothing.
Right.
Tell them the difference about local versus national.
I think from a local side, you're really trying to get your message out. You're telling your story over and over and over again and really trying to make an impact in regards to why your mission is important. There's a lot of nonprofits, right? So why your cause, why your mission. And I think from I joke around that in a small nonprofit, you're taking out your own trash, you're cleaning your own toilets, you're also going to the galas, you're planning things, you have to wear a lot of different hats. And it's very exciting because you can maneuver a little bit differently.
You're an entrepreneur.
Yeah, like you just you make it enough as you go in some ways, even though I think that we were really clear on our mission, you still are designing things as you go. Where on a national stage, people were really clear on that mission, and people really understood the huge importance of ensuring the fact that our public education had a clear platform and talking about the fact that there is no room for an achievement gap within our state, and that every child deserves an incredible education regardless of where they grow up. And so that was such an incredibly powerful movement to be a part of. So you feel like you're joining something that is much larger, and also impacts local, right? So growing up here, understanding our school systems and knowing why this is so important for our future as an Arizonan. And so that was really wonderful to be part of something larger. And what's funny now is at Girl Scouts, I feel like I get the best of both worlds, where our council, we are our own 501c3, so we charter with our national organization. So to be able to be part of a national movement, yet still have local autonomy is really exciting. And so in some ways, I got the best of both worlds.
Educate me and everyone else that the Arizona Cactus-Pine Council. Okay, what is it a demographic coverage? Is it a geographic coverage? Like, is it the entire state? Is it just the Valley Metro?
Yes.
I think everyone would want to know, okay, Christina, how big is it?
Yes. So Girl Scouts-Arizona Cactus-Pine Council covers 2/3 of the state and all of Navajo Nation and Hopi lands. So our jurisdiction covers it's 75,000 square miles, and it covers
It's bigger than most countries,
right? I mean, and it's incredibly diverse.
What's the third that it doesn't include?
Basically southern Arizona, so Tucson all the way down to the Mexico border.
So you don't have Yuma, you don't have Tucson.
Correct.
Okay, got it.
And what's really beautiful is that our jurisdiction has kept the Navajo Nation and Hopi lands whole, so we get to serve that entire community and tribal community, which I think is really important. And also just to be able to serve the fullness of the diversity of our state.
So with the way that a lot of people are familiar with how through other, whether it's this podcast or whatever, there's other things, I would ask a question. Because it's, with the nations up there, a lot of it goes into like New Mexico or Colorado or Utah. Do you actually spill over into those states? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
In other words, it just doesn't matter about the state line because with the nation, yeah.
Yep, it's their sovereign.
Right.
So, yeah. So currently, right now, we serve about 13,000 girls that are supported by 8,000 volunteers.
That's a good ratio.
Yeah, and our volunteers are
that's a low ratio.
They are the lifeline of what we do, and the Girl Scouting story is so amazing in the fact that we started before women had the right to vote. So we've been around for 113 years. And so it started even before then. And so now you fast forward to where we are today, and so many of those core values are very similar about ensuring the fact that girls have a space of belonging, that they have a place where they can try new things, take on new adventures, and really be their fullest self. So that hasn't changed, although lots of other things have changed.
Yes. Well, let's just dive right into that.
There comes a time when dreams become a reality, when you see your vision materialize into a true work of art. And the only way to get there is to choose a general contractor who shares that same vision and knows how to bring it to life. At Blue Wave, we aren't so big that we've forgotten where we've come from, and we aren't so small that we can't care for your projects regardless of their size. When your vision deserves safety, perfection, timeliness, and expertise in order to become a reality, trust Blue Wave to get it done right the first time.
If we can acknowledge Mary Mitchell, your
Yes.
co-wackadoodle at the top.
We started out by saying we were partners in crime, and then people would look at us funny. So she is my executive partner, is that we call each other.
In crime. We're not politically correct here. We tell it like it is. So welcome, Mary. You're here by proxy, right?
Yes, always.
So Girl Scouts in general. What's the health of Girl Scouts in general? And I'm gonna preface it because I'm gonna play the gender gap here for a second.
Yeah.
I think we all know that the Boy Scouts went through not so much good publicity back when, and I think a lot of people affiliated that the Girl Scouts and the Boy Scouts are based under the same umbrella,
Right.
just run differently for different gender. I think that's not even close, right?
No.
That's right. So I kind of want you to, we don't have 2 hours, but just give a little inflection about what platform the Girl Scouts stands on, and then this gets deep. What are what are the initiatives now on the Girl Scouts? What does that platform look like? So when an audience hears it, they don't have a stereotypical, a bias or stereotype of what Girl Scouts is in their head.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that question. So, Girl Scouts, when we started 113 years ago, it was all about ensuring the fact that girls could live their fullest and best selves. And so for us, we have always tried to look at how to stay relevant for girls. One of my favorite Julie Gordon-Low stories. So Julie Gordon-Low was our founder, and she was way before her time, right? I love reading stories about her because she just would be a really fun person to sit with. So there's a story that I love to share about her. So when basketball became a really kind of fun sport for people to play, the girls in her troop wanted to play basketball, but they had those really massive skirts that had those hoops, Yeah. And so they would try to play, and it didn't work very well. So she would let them play basketball in their bloomers.
Yeah.
And people would walk by, and the story goes that people would faint, right? Because it was
so risque.
So risque that, girls are playing, basketball in their journeys. So they called her into a town hall and said, you have to stop immediately. And so she's like, okay. So she put shower curtains up around her area where the girls were playing basketball, so it didn't disrupt the public, but still allowed her girls to play basketball. And the reason why I love that story so much is because she pushed the boundaries, listened to the girls, allowed the girls to be the center, and allowed them to guide what their experience in Girl Scouts wanted to be. And she, as the adult, going back to kind of my own personal stories, kind of funny to make this tie now, is that all she did was clear the way.
Mm-hmm.
So she made it possible. She put the shower curtains up and said, okay, great, now continue on. And she played the role of a really great troop leader, which is just creating points of access. So when we fast forward now, 113 years later, I believe that Girl Scouting is still doing that. We are still looking at how to build girls of courage, character, and confidence who can make the world a better place. And we do that through allowing them to discover themselves, to connect with others, and to take action. And most importantly, that they get a sense of sisterhood and a sense of belonging. So when they are out there, in the world, looking at all the different things, that they can have a safe place to try, take healthy risks, take adventure, all of those different pieces for themselves. And then all of those skills and what I keep calling the muscle of confidence, that's strength training, right? Every time you do something that is outside your comfort zone and you have a great reward from it, you get a little stronger. And even if you fail, you go, what did I learn? And then you get to build that muscle of self-reflection, and that failure isn't necessarily something that is internal to you. I am not a failure. That just didn't work out.
Yeah. Well framed.
So then it's all transferable. So then in the real world, outside of Girl Scouts, you then carry that with you and you carry that attitude. And I think that's why Cookies has existed for so long. That Cookies has existed for so long because, I think it's the greatest cover-up of all time. But I'll share about why in a second. But it every time a girl goes up to a house or stands at a booth and says, would you like to buy a box of Girl Scout cookies? And you hear yes, that is like, ooh, a win.
Yeah.
And then you hear it again. And then when you hear no, you're like, okay, next person. I know someone else is coming. So it builds that sense of confidence in them.
Before you get in the cookies thing, let me go down a couple of my copious notes here. So I'm older than Dirk, right? So back when I was a kid in the Midwest, there was nothing for the Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, or Weeblos, or Cub Scouts, or whatever it was.
Right.
And I'm curious, in today's environment, is the recruitment, when I say recruitment, you still have to have exposure. You're top grading too. It's like you get the generation goes up, new generation comes in. You're always happy to replace. Is that coming now more through school, church, community level? Like, where is it coming from?
I think.
Because back when it was all school related.
Right.
Now, let's be honest. The public school forum, I don't care if it's private, public, the platform isn't there anymore.
Right. Recruitment is incredibly challenging. And some of it is because if you've never been invited to be a Girl Scout and that's not something that you have family history of, why would you go look for it? And so I think that part of our efforts around our diversity, equity, and inclusion and racial justice efforts of really ensuring the fact that we're living up to our policy that we have as in our organization is ensuring the fact that everybody gets the invitation, which takes a lot of time and effort. So think of it in a similar way that your yield rate isn't going to be as high the first time you go out. So you have to ask, 8 times. Is it whether you have to hear something or get invited 8 times before you actually get a yes kind of thing. So there's really talking about it everywhere, being everywhere, making sure that people know that they can see themselves in our work, which means are we ensuring the fact that even down to like our marketing materials, do our marketing materials say that, hey, I'm an Arizona girl, it looks and feels and it seems like Arizona, so that when girls and families go and they can see themselves and they can see their community inside of our publications, it's really important. We have an incredible marketing team that has really worked hard to ensure the fact that our materials represent our Arizona girls. And so the recruitment, I think you bring up an excellent point that is, it's not just schools anymore or faith-based communities. It's the community, general community activities. It's the social media. It's word of mouth. It's that invitation. And I think that's really important. My daughter is in she's been in her troop since she was in kindergarten. And this year she had 3 new girls join as 6th graders, which is incredible. And it's because somebody asked. And so that's shocking to me when I hear that it's somebody just made the invitation of, hey, do you want to join my Girl Scout troop? And then the answer is like, yeah, absolutely. When do you meet? So recruitment is really tough. And I think everyone's in that boat right now, trying to figure out how do you cut through the noise and allow their organization or their mission to be able to be their priority in they're competing for time.
Yeah. So if I know you can't answer this, there's no silver lining, right? There's no magic fairy dust that goes. But are you seeing a trend in anything that is word of mouth better than social media? Are you finding anything that's the new, like just now, like whatever now means, like in the next 6 to 9 months, what is working for the Girl Scouts now on that recruitment?
I think there's a couple of different pieces that I genuinely believe that when people get an opportunity to really sit down and learn about Girl Scouting and they can see the fact that they are welcomed in Girl Scouting, that everyone follows, right? So we are seeing an increase in our Latino population joining Girl Scouts. We're seeing the fact that our efforts around really being present within every community. We cover 2/3 of this beautiful state. And so we have to really make sure that we are doing just as much in our extended areas as we are here in the metropolitan area. So we have new troops that are forming. I just heard about one that formed in Quartzsite, which, how cool is that, right? And so we want to make sure that every single girl in our jurisdiction understands that they are absolutely welcomed in our organization.
We'll get back to I have one more key question, then we can get back to cookies and Girl Scouts and anything else. You grew up without a father, right?
So my dad lived in California,
Yeah.
and so we had an off and on again relationship.
Okay. Well, I preface it by saying how, because you can talk to it personally.
Yeah.
I don't care, again, back if it's Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, or any other civic organization that does this. What are you seeing the importance of your group in? I mean, society is society. We can't change it. We can't be judge or jury. But that one parent household is all too common, or divorced, and the Brady Bunches of the world and all these kind of things. Where do the Scouts come in? Like from the way you see it personally and professionally.
I think this opportunity to stand in the gap of a caring adult is really huge. And even with families that have two parents, I think about my own daughter for a second, so she's got two parents and who love her deeply, but being able to have a caring adult in her life that isn't my husband or myself, I think is really, really valuable. So, for example, I remember Emily coming home one day and saying, look at this really cool pink, it was like a folder. She's like, look, Miss Lynn knew that my favorite color was pink, so she gave me a pink folder. And it sounds really simple, but the fact that somebody else knew that about my daughter made her feel that she was important and seen. And as a young person, isn't that what you want, is to feel important, seen, loved? And as a parent, you want the world to love your child the way in which you love them, right? So to be able to have a community where they can have that is really special. And so I think that this is, it's not necessarily family circumstances, because every family's got something going on, that being able to be part of a community where there's other caring adults who know your children and down to their favorite color, I think is really important. And so I also think from a father perspective, and I would really love to see this kind of embraced fully, is that, when I talk to dads will say like, oh, well, that's my wife's thing. She does.
I was going to hit to that stereotype, yeah.
And I mean, no. Like, dads have such a huge impact on their daughters, or the father figure in a girl's life. I share a story about when it was junior high, and they do those spirit days, and they had like wear your dad's tie to school day or whatever, and I have a tie in my house. So my mom makeshift this weird scarf looking thing to be a tie, and it's terrible and super embarrassing. And we had a carpool, and that day my friend's dad took us to school, and before I got out of the car, he goes, "Hey, Christina, I didn't know if you had a tie or not, so I brought you. Was here to pick from." And I picked one, and I got to wear a tie to school that day. And it made me realize standing in the gap is such a critical piece, and it took a really small thing. So he probably went to work late, thought about me, and allowed me to have that moment, right? And so as a kid, that's so critical. And so the more that we as adults are involved in our kids' existence and lives and their friends and their people, we have the opportunity to stand in the gap. And I think that from a Girl Scout perspective, as a dad, to be involved and to see that, you never know, right? And it doesn't need to be big things. It can just be small little things, whether or not it's helping out with the cookie program or being a troop leader. So our dads can absolutely be troop leaders. And what does that look like? And so I think that the invitation stands for the whole family to be involved.
Well framed. Figured I'd tee it up for you.
Yeah, no problem. Come on, Christina, take the bait.
Ticket.
Recruit everyone, right?
Everyone.
All right.
We need all of them.
So let's see. I got to check the time. So we got about 17 minutes left. We could probably get a lot more ground to cover. So why don't you get to the heart of everyone's? Girl Scouts and cookies are synonymous,
Oh, wait.
and it's never going away. At least I hope not, because I love buying them. So I've had a little addiction to the coconut ones.
Oh, yes.
Everyone hates those ones, but I love them.
Purple box.
Yes, yeah. So I don't know. Talk to me about cookies.
Yes, absolutely. So I love to chat about cookies. So we joke around about the fact that we deeply respect the cookie, right? Like we don't mess with it. It's a beautiful story because really there was a Girl Scout troop that essentially wanted to be able to raise money for themselves, and so they did what they knew how to do best, and they made cookies and sold them.
Where did it originate?
I believe it was either Nebraska. Somewhere.
Okay.
I should know that, but I don't know that. Sure. Somewhere, I know. It was somewhere in the Midwest area, I think. You can.
No, we always do it. Go ahead.
So we, the girls, as that has developed, the thing that is pretty spectacular about the cookie program is that the way that the cookie crumbles is that the girl, are you of that? So there's the actual cost of goods. And so that cost of goods then goes towards ensuring that we get the product. The Girl Scout troop gets a portion, and then the council gets a portion. And so what is really beautiful about that is that the funds that the girls actually raise, they then get to determine how they want to use those funds. So whether or not that is investing in themselves, investing in their troop, investing in their own community. We have a lot of girls that will use those cookie funds to help figure out how to solve a problem. So as they're learning about different community issues, they'll figure out, wow, how can we use some of our funds to be able to get back? But the greatest part about cookies is that it's about financial independence.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, it teaches some real appropriate life skills, right?
Absolutely. Because we know that when you're financially independent, you can make your own choices. And so,
can I interrupt?
Yeah.
I think that I would like to know, and I think audience would like to know, does the Girl Scouts in general, at the macro level, the bylaws, does it dictate the percentage that they get to keep?
No. So Girl Scouts-Arizona Cactus-Pine Council. So everything that is raised here through cookies, philanthropy, any of that actually all stays in Arizona. The only money that leaves
To get sold?
Is actually our membership dues.
Also,
The membership dues is the only thing that actually leaves to our national account, is our national organization. But everything else stays here local. And so, which I think people also get a little surprised by.
I'm surprised by that.
That we really do have the opportunity, which again goes back to when we think about women and girls organizations, it is very difficult to raise money for girls. And when I came over from Teach for America, raising millions of dollars a year for education, and coming over to Girl Scouts, when I heard people say it's really challenging to raise money for girls, I kind of was like, come on, you're just not asking right. And then I got in there and I was like, you know what? It is. And the statistics prove that. So
that's interesting.
1.9% of philanthropy goes to women and girls. So there's more money that goes to pets than women and girls.
It doesn't surprise me.
Right. So it's shocking and challenging. And so what Girl Scouts did many, many, many years ago is figure out how do we ensure the fact that we allow girls to do the things that they need to do, and how do we really make sure that they benefit from the lessons of financial independence and financial means, and turned it into a phenomenal program where girls are really learning entrepreneurship skills. They're learning about, we have the five skills that they learn, which are on the back of the box. And really, I think in these last few years, they've learned a sixth skill, which is managing uncertainty, right? Just like every other business owner out there, learning about supply chain issues and inflation and all these other things. They're talking about these things and they care deeply.
I have to ask.
Yeah.
During 2020, did you actually sell more?
Well, so it's tricky. So 2020, our sale ended.
Because we can't say the word on here because it'll
Right, because the
poo-poo our
Yep.
algorithms, but you know what I meant. COVID.
Yes. So we actually, our sale had ended prior to that happening.
Oh,
So where really impacted was 2021.
21.
And so that was unbelievable. And what I will share with you is that our girls are so creative. The community was so creative. I think about what Bashes did. So, Bashes, we were worried about exposure for girls. Like, how do you about, I think it's 68% of our sales come from boothing. So girls standing up there and, doing 68. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a
I would have never guessed that high a percentage.
well, because our weather is beautiful. It's great. It's gorgeous. People are out and about there. So our girls are out there. They're boothing. And how are we going to do this? So, Bashes really worked alongside of how do we create drive-through booths opportunities for people to come through who are so the community really figured out how to make all these different components happen for us. And our girls took it on.
Yeah.
And then we also had the Bavaroni Parsons Foundation that also stepped up and helped to fill a gap during that time as well, where they gave us resources so that we would have the ability to figure out where we needed to supplement and maybe change our model around the cookie practices to be able to be as accommodating as needed. So an example of that is that we call them cookie cupboards. They're literally people's garages, but for cookie cupboards, that it used to be that you could only check in and out full cases of cookies. Well, that's really challenging if you need 2 boxes versus, 12 boxes. So we were able to figure out how we were going to accommodate that, and those resources helped us to really be more nimble and more flexible for our girls so that we were meeting their needs, which then encouraged them to participate in the sale.
It was great. Listen, you're involved in so many other things. We have 10 minutes now, so you're cool. Can we tangent it?
Yep, already.
All right. We were talking offline. Shout out to our friend Tiffany at Tiffany Sharp and Girls Can Build, and then also CAMEO. I guess just talk about anything else you want to about the cool things you're involved in the Valley.
Sure, absolutely. So I'll share a couple of things. So yes, absolutely. The Girls Can Build component was amazing, which helped Girl Scouts develop our Girl Scout mobile building space, which has been incredible. It's now been in existence for a year. And I have the opportunity of serving on a board, Young and Empowered, which has been really fantastic to work with women who are in their 20s and 30s, and really ensuring the fact that they have access to the community. And I would say my new latest fun thing that I am loving more than anything actually has to do with my son. So my son loves cars, and I kept trying to find something cool for him to get involved in. So I was like, what about these, like a car club for kids or something? There's a car thing for everything. Well, there wasn't. So
You started one.
So we started one. So my son and I started our kids' car club. And so we have 60 kids in our kids' car club. And this past 2 weekends ago, 8 boys since December have been planning a kids' car club car show for kids by kids. And so they put on the entire thing. They raised about $7,000. They got all the cars. They made so if they could envision what would a car show want to be for them,
right,
that's what they created. And so I will tell you, it has been wild because I work with girls, right? Like that's my lane. And it has been so cool to work with these young men and what they have to think, what they think about and their questions. And
hey, we're a simple breed.
I mean, it's so fun. So, for example, we go and we're talking about the event, and I'm like, well, it would be about $1,200 for balloon arches. And they're like, no balloon arches. We do not need balloon arches for $1,200. And I'm like, well, balloon arches help you to understand like what area you're in. It like really makes it pretty. And they were like, no balloon arches. Save the $1,200. I mean, it was so simple. And the parents who were there were just like dying laughing because I kept pushing for these balloon arches. And finally I was like, they don't care if it's pretty. Like they just want to save the $1,200. it was so cool though, right? Like they really let Miss Christina know that that's not what they wanted to happen. So
I love it.
that's my newest and latest, and it's been special to have that with my son.
Hey, I got to give you a shout out because I realized I didn't mention this earlier, but and I know I do this a lot, but just so everyone knows, Christina was also recognized as Phoenix Business Journal's 40 Under 40. She got that award. She also was named as Diverse Business Leader to Watch and the Phoenix Mercury's Believe in Women Award. You're doing a lot.
Thank you.
Be proud.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. On behalf of girls, it's really fun to be able to do this and to be able to speak about them. So it's truly an honor.
So you've done so much in the past. What's on the horizon?
This is it right now, right? I've been in this role for 4 years. Me and Mary, we have a lot to take on, and it's a really big job. And I'm really glad that I have her as my partner. And I think the co-leadership thing is something that people have really watched closely. And I love being in partnership with her. So it's exciting to think about all the really cool adventures that we get to do for girls in the future.
Here's a question. I just was looking at my notes I wanted to ask you earlier. The Phoenix Valley in general. I realize you serve a larger part of Arizona, but let's just talk about, honestly, 90% of the population is here in the valley or whatever. I'm just making something up. What is the Phoenix community like from a philanthropic standpoint? Is it good, bad, and different compared to what you've seen in? Because you talk to your peers in other parts of the country. I'm curious, how are we doing?
That is a great question. I think every nonprofit would probably answer that differently, depending on where they're at.
Okay, well, then,
So I would say
through your eyes,
through the standpoint of Girl Scouting, I will share that it has been really inspiring to watch our community invest in girls. I think that sometimes with statistics like 1.9% of philanthropy goes to women and girls, it would be really fascinating to really look at that from a state level, because I do believe that this community invests in girls.
Yeah.
And I think that when given the opportunity and when asked, they step up and they answer the call. And so it's been while I've been at Girl Scouts over the last 10 years, we completed an $18 million capital campaign to launch the Bob and Renee Parsons Leadership Center at Camp South Mountain. And
is that all? Naturally, for the I of course know Bob and Ray, but do they run it through their foundation? I assume.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And without them, that camp would not have been possible. I mean, it was just such an incredible gift. And I will share with you that they gave the first largest cash gift that's ever been given to Girl Scouts, which is $5 million.
Holy Hannah.
And it was an incredible moment, and it was an honor that Arizona had that honor.
Yeah.
And it should make us shake our head a little bit that an organization the size of Girl Scouts, that up until the Mackenzie Scott gift of the 14.5 acres of cash that she gave to, I think it was actually more than that. Now that I say that out loud.
Don't worry about it.
But
we're not going to fact check it.
Yeah. You can fact check it. I should probably fact check it. So she gave several councils in a national organization an incredible gift 2 years ago. But up until then, they were the largest foundation to ever give that size of a cash gift to Girl Scouts nationally. So when you ask the question about from a philanthropic standpoint, I think when we have the opportunity to tell our story, when we have the opportunity to talk about girls, the state answers. And so it's really an honor to be able to serve in this place, because I do think that this community wants something different for our youth, and they step up.
Mic drop. That's all I got. We do have just a few minutes left. Is there anything else that you want to share that's just on your mind as far as reaching the MAC Bleu audience? Advocacy, shout out, I don't know, do anything else. It's open mic for Christina.
Gosh, past dangers.
And can't sit karaoke either.
Yeah, you would not want me to.
I'll ask your family.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Oh, we got mom singing in the shower again.
Oh, they would be like, yeah, that's not a shock. I think I would say that we had the speaker come once, and he shared about the fact that respect means to look again. And I
Time to write that down.
I've held on to that because I think the request that I would have is, I think everybody knows Girl Scouting, and I think Girl Scouts and Girl Scout cookies and the brand to really maybe take a look again, to show our girls some respect about all that they're doing outside of cookies, outside the incredible work that they're doing to give back to their communities, the work that they're doing to invest in themselves, to be able to become incredible leaders in our community. And so I think my call to action, if you will, would be to really take another look at Girl Scouting, to really know who we are, that people are welcome here, to be able to give up their time, to have their girls involved, to register their girls if they have a girl in their life. We do some pretty incredible work.
Attitude reflects leadership, right? So kudos to you and Mary.
Yeah, thank you.
I appreciate that. Hey, anyone who wants to get a hold of Christina, it's Christina Spicer, and it's at girlscouts.az.org. Look them up, and plus she's all over social media too, so she's easily trackable. If I found her, anyone could find her. So thanks again for coming on today,
Thank you so much for having me.
You do the great work in the community.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the MAC Bleu Show, brought to you by Blue Wave General Contracting. Be sure to subscribe to the MAC Bleu podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Follow JJ Levinsky on LinkedIn and Instagram. Tune in every Monday